watching this video, I'm assuming it's because you're trying to figure out which city in Alaska is going to be the best place for you to live. My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching in real estate. And today we're going to be talking about the best cities in Alaska. Is that Wasilla? Well, we're going to be taking a deep dive onto that topic today. Before we get started though, do make sure you subscribe and make sure you like this video. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers and we're getting really close, so if you would go ahead and do that, that would be deeply appreciated. Now, let's go ahead and jump into today's video. Whether or not Wasilla is the best city to live in Alaska, one of the first things I'm going to look at is the cost of housing. By and large, the cost of housing in Wasilla and the overall cost of living is going to be lower than what it's going to be in the municipality of Anchorage, which is about 30-40 minutes south of Wasilla. And so for that reason, Wasilla definitely is one of those places that is pretty desired. And for that reason, it's somewhere where you can live in Wasilla, and it's close enough you can go work in Anchorage and actually get the higher wage. So for that reason, it's pretty popular for people who are going to be willing to commute. So that's definitely a big pro on Wasilla's side, that the cost of living and the cost of housing here is going to be much lower. Kind of talking also in the vein of housing here, the lots are going to be a lot bigger. Okay, you can definitely tell there's a pretty big difference when you go from Anchorage to the Mat-Su Valley. In the Mat-Su Valley, usually lots are going to be about half an acre to about an acre or so. If you get to some places over in Anchorage, Eagle River, I mean, they're pretty zero lot lines, and don't stretch too much or you might hit your neighbor. Like, it can be kind of that close. Only a couple places like that, by the way, but still. So yeah, lots are going to be bigger in the Mat-Su Valley, and the properties are going to be newer, and they're going to be more modern and have a lot of good benefits for them in that way. Another really big pro that Wasilla has going for it is it really does have easy access to a lot of outdoor activities that you can get in Anchorage, but it's just going to be more difficult to get to it, such as cross-country skiing. Over in Hatcher Pass, we do have some downhill skiing there now as well, so it's not just Alyeska or a couple of these other places in Anchorage anymore. You've got the snowboarding, you've got easy access to fishing, to going on the ATVing. You can go hiking a lot easier. You can actually go paragliding and all that over in Hatcher Pass really easily. And there's just really a lot of things in Wasilla that's going to be easier to do if you're out there as opposed to living over in Anchorage. And there's also just going to be fewer restrictions to what you can do in the Mat-Su Valley, Wasilla, Palmer, places like that, as compared to Anchorage as well. So you do have a lot more freedom out there. All right, that brings us to my next point, and that is government-wise, usually Wasilla is pretty hands-off. There's really not a whole lot of restrictions on what you can and can't do, and this can be considered a bad thing or a good thing depending on how you're looking. Honestly, I think there needs to be a little bit more centralized planning, because you get to a lot of weird zoning situations where you have like a mechanic shop right in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and you go further north and you see like all these weird property classes right next to each other because there's no centralized planning. There's no zoning that says, okay, this is how it would best serve the community, having, XYZ asset class here. And you really don't get that in Wasilla. They're starting to do better at bringing it in, but it's tougher to bring it in after the fact, after we have a lot of these things already established, than it is to just do it from the very beginning. But government-wise, it's usually pretty hands-off. It's just, that's good. That's kind of the crowd that gets attracted out there. But there's definitely something to be said for centralized planning. You will understand when you're out here and you get to take a look at it yourself. Last but not least, there's definitely a slower pace of life over in Wasilla than you're going to find in other places, even in Alaska. It definitely does kind of have, it's still kind of a small town feel. It's very spread out, and so it's difficult to have like a coalesced sense of community at one central spot. Palmer, they do have kind of a really cute downtown district, and so that kind of serves as a little bit of an anchor point for the entire community. Wasilla is trying to grow as quickly as possible, but it still kind of maintains that small town vibe, and you still have access to like the big box stores like the Lowe's, the Target, and Walmart, all that stuff right there. And so you do still get the easy convenience of those things, but it's still kind of a smaller community. All right, we're going to finish this up in just a minute. Before we do, though, let's go and take a quick break. For those of you who've been watching for a little bit, you do know that I have a relocation guide for those of you who are considering moving to Alaska. And the way that you access that is you actually go to the link in the description section down below. Go to my website. Make sure you put in your information, and in the little comment section, you put relocation guide so I know what to send you. I cannot do anything for you if you just put relocation guide in the comment section. How do you think I'm going to get anything to you that way? So make sure you go to the website, put in your information, email address, all that stuff, but relocation guide so I know what to send you. It's kind of a great general guide, and it's definitely going to help you get oriented as you're trying to figure the state out. Now, let's go and finish up today's video now, talking about the things about Wasilla that might not make it the best place to live for you, depending on what it is that you're looking for. Now, keep in mind, if you are living in Wasilla and you're going to have to drive all the way to Anchorage, that can become a pretty long commute every day. Now, I will say commuting in Alaska is vastly different than what commuting in the lower 48 is. A lot of people are used to bumper-to-bumper traffic and it taking like 2 hours one way and all this crazy stuff. That's really not what the norm is going to be in Wasilla. There'll be a little bit of a bottleneck because you get the Parks Highway going right through Wasilla, and that's a bit of a problem because you get all these people trying to go through like the infrastructure in this town that really wasn't designed for that amount of traffic, and it can turn into a bit of a bottleneck. But once you get to the Parks Highway and actually get out onto the actual highway and you get free of Wasilla, then it's actually usually going to be pretty easy going the rest of the way. You're more or less going to be going highway speed the entire time unless somebody gets into a wreck. And yes, that does include the winter time as well. Once people get familiar with the roads and all that, you're more or less going to be driving highway speed the entire time. Another really big con, well, pro, depending on what your stance is, Wasilla is really an area that is developing quickly. So you're probably going to be seeing a lot of construction going on as you're living out here. And again, this is something where it can be a big pro for you, or it can be a big con. If you want to see the development happening and still be somewhere where you've got your own space and you can get to the wilderness really easily, that's actually going to be a pretty big pro. If it's something you don't want to see development and you just want to be left alone in the middle of nowhere, Wasilla is probably not going to be your thing anyway. Keep in mind, if you are trying to plan your life out here, wages, if you're not wanting to commute to Anchorage, wages are going to be lower in the Mat-Su Valley than they're going to be over in Anchorage. And that's why most people are willing to, just deal with the longer commute, because they're going to get higher paying jobs out in Anchorage as compared to the Valley. So for that reason, a lot of people are willing to do that. But if you're really just wanting to avoid that commute altogether, then the wages are just going to be lower in the Mat-Su Valley, and you just kind of accept that. Okay, now I've already kind of alluded to and talked about this one, but for a small town, it has a lot of traffic, and that's because we've got the Parks Highway just goes right through Wasilla, and honestly, I think that was kind of a planning mistake because you're forcing so many people to go right through the heart of this small town, and it just wasn't designed to have this many people going through it. And they're trying to figure out the best way to fix that. I've heard talk about creating a corridor to just bypass Wasilla altogether. I think that would be great. The issue there is there's a lot of development already in the areas that they're looking at potentially doing a corridor. And that becomes a little bit more of an issue at that point, and you got to have some good justification for moving the highway through an area that's already pretty developed. All right, so I already mentioned this one, but I'm going to mention it again. While there wasn't any real good centralized long-term planning when they really started to grow, you can get into a lot of situations where you've got property classes sitting right next to each other that makes absolutely no dadgum sense. Imagine in your town going down like your neighborhood block and you've got like a mechanic shop right in the middle of a residential area, and that's some of the stuff you can start running into in Wasilla and as you start going further north. So they're getting better about it now. I did have an interview talking with Mike Brown, the borough manager, kind of talking about the best things that they're going to be doing in order to start bringing about a little bit more centralized planning. So Wasilla remains a place that, is actually livable in future generations. And, that's going to be something that they're really going to be working on here moving forward. But for right now, it feels a little bit like a mess as far as the zoning goes. It was a little too Wild West for a little too long. All right, for what it's worth, if you're trying to find some lakefront property, you're going to have much better chances in Wasilla than you're going to have just about anywhere else, especially the South Central area, because there's a lot more lakes in Wasilla than you're going to be able to find really anywhere else in South Central. So yeah, if that's important to you, you're in luck. All right, last but not least, you do still kind of get the small town vibe here, but you do get the conveniences of having the big box stores nearby. And I put this on the con list because for some people, access to the big box stores is really just, it's not what they want. That's not what they envision when they come to Alaska, and I get it. But for most people, at least having access to these places is really going to go a long way to helping them assimilate. And just as far as conveniences go, it's pretty good to have Lowe's right down the road. So this has been your video talking about whether or not Wasilla is going to be the best city, town for you to live in. I will let you make that decision yourself. What I recommend is kind of use this as a starting point in your journey, in your decision-making process, and then actually come out here and visit Wasilla itself just to kind of get a feel for it. But this has been my video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.